Greetings everyone, Jim Walker here. Welcome to the video. Hopefully you're coming to this having seen the first in this series of 4 videos dealing with creating vibraphone parts for big band arrangements. I'll give you the first video gets into greater detail of what we're trying to accomplish here and why. But we will start with this video with just a thumbnail review of that. I invite you to check out that first video, but just as a setup, this video, as all 4 are targeted towards the high school or college percussionist who is going to be playing vibraphone with the school's big band. And very quickly you run into the challenge, the truism that the vast majority of published big band charts do not include parts written for vibraphone. So if you're going to play vibes in the big band, someone's got to come up with a part, and it's more than likely going to be you. So here in this second video, we're going to start with the most common scenario, which is not only have you gotten music from your band director, but you have gotten probably a piano part, possibly a guitar part. So we're going to be talking about some things and demonstrating some things to take those parts and help adapt them to the vibraphone. So to start with the piano part, the good news with piano and vibraphone is they are both what is known as concert instruments. At least that's what they called them in my orchestration and theory classes when I was in college. It means the written note on the page and the sounding note you hear when the note is played on the instrument are identical. So if you take a piece of paper, you take a piece of manuscript paper and you write middle C on it, and you hand it to a pianist and say, play this note, you will hear middle C. Take that piece of paper, bring it over, put it on the vibes, play that note, you will hear middle C. It's a one-to-one relationship. Not all instruments offer that. You will find out going on which of those are the case and how we deal with what's called transposition. This is something I really had to learn a lot about when I was starting out. I had no experience with it until I got into this particular task. So the good news, you could take a piano part, put it on the music stand, read what's written, and it would fit. It would be appropriate to what you're hearing in the band. Again, all the notes are the same. You see C, D, E written in the part. You play it, you will hear C, D, E. F sharp is F sharp, one-to-one relationship. The obvious challenges with the piano are the range of the instruments. Piano's got 88 keys, which, if I remember my math correctly, is a little over 7 octaves. Certainly more than you get on a vibraphone, which is 3 octaves for the standard vibraphone. Maybe if you're in a college, you have a 3.5 or possibly 4 octave vibraphone. By and large, still the most common one I see at schools is the standard F to F 3 octave range. So you're talking about 37 bars instead of 88 keys. And piano played, you got 10 fingers to work with, versus vibraphone, you're playing more than likely with either 2 or 4 mallets. There's 6 mallet techniques and 6 mallet vibraphone, but it's nowhere near as common as 2 and 4. It's something that I've dabbled with. I've never gotten anywhere with. I've never taken it on stage. 4 is enough for me to worry about. So you've got to adapt to the number of notes you can play and the range you've got to work with. That's kind of an obvious one, I think. If you see notes that are written and they go below the range of the vibraphone, take it up the octave, or above the range of the vibraphone, take it down. Do what you need to do to make the part work on your instrument. You are the arranger in this scenario. The original arranger is long out of the picture. You've got to take over that mantle, take over that job. So your job is to create a vibraphone part that sounds good on the instrument. Sounds like it might be kind of obvious, but keep that in mind. Do what you need to do to make it fit on the instrument. So one thing I do want to mention in terms of playability on the instrument, if you have written out, let me rephrase that because that might be a little bit misleading. If the arranger has provided written out chord voicings for the piano, not just chord symbol notation, G, M-I-N 7, C7, flat 9, sharp 5, etc., not just the abbreviation, not just the shorthand, but is actually written out note for note chord voicings, you can take those from the piano part and play them, assuming that you have enough malice to play that. There are sometimes going to be some two-handed voicings written for the piano, but let's take the idea that it's going to be a voicing written to be played in one hand. Maybe you're playing the melody in the piano, comping with the left hand, playing a bass line in the left hand, comping with the right hand. So we're going to take that 4-note voicing as our starting point for this example. Just about all of those voicings are going to be in what is called closed position. At least that's what the theory department in my college called it. Seems like every different theory department, depending upon where your theory teachers went to college, has different terminologies for the same thing. But I think that one's pretty standard. Closed position voicing, which basically means all 4 notes of the voicing. We're going to work with 4-note voicings in this example. All 4 notes fit within the span of a single octave, which is great if you're playing 4 notes with the 5 fingers of a single hand. It fits beautifully. And you should be able to play those on a mallet instrument. Odds are when you start to study 7th chords, notes that have not just the triad, but first, third, fifth, 7th, the kind of chords you're more likely to see in a jazz arrangement. You're probably going to learn those in closed position. It's easier to visualize, easier to keep track of things. You're just stacking up thirds. And again, you should be able to play those. Sometimes, though, those closed position voicings can be a little, shall we say, awkward to play. For example, go to your pickup, if you're a 4-mallet player, pick up the mallets, go to the marimba or vibraphone, and play a B dominant 7th chord. B, D sharp, F sharp, and A natural. And to get the mallets in place on that, you kind of got to turn your hands like this, get the inside mallets up on the upper manual of bars, the outside mallets stay on the lower bars. I've got a couple of students now who are working on 7th chords, and every time we get to the chords that have this shape, in terms of black keys and white keys, I guarantee at least I'm going to get a dirty look, or I may get a comment along the lines of, do I have to do this? Yes, you do. It really is foundational. You should be able to do it. But it is awkward. It's not the most comfortable chord position, chord voicing to play. There's a way to make it a little bit more suitable for the vibraphone, a little bit more user-friendly. And it's something called the drop 2 technique, or the drop 2 treatment. I've heard both terms. And I did a video on this fairly recently where I really explored the idea and went into greater detail why I found they work really well on the vibraphone. This is nothing that I created, by the way. I learned this studying mallets with Bill Molinoff when I was a student at Ithaca College. And I've also heard about this in jazz arranging classes. So it's not even unique to the vibraphone. It's just a standard voicing technique. But again, it's called the drop 2 technique. I'll invite you to check out that other video, but I'll give you, again, the thumbnail version of it here. Starting with a 4-note voicing, and I'm going to put a graphic up on the screen. We're going to start with a C major 7th chord. Forgive me looking off to the side of my music stand here. Basic C major 7th chord. You see where it says closed position. Again, all within the span of an octave. And we've got C, E, G, and B. All stacked up. Sounds great. Nothing wrong with it. I play it often, play this chord position, this voicing often, 1, 3, 5, and 7. But again, you do this on a B dominant 7th chord, or any number of, it has a similar shape to that B dominant 7th chord, even a B triad. A little bit cumbersome. The second measure here illustrates that what happens when you apply that drop 2 technique. Here's what you do. You take the 4 notes of the chord voicing and you number them top to bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4. It doesn't matter what inversion the chord is in. It doesn't matter the quality of the chord. It doesn't matter whether a given note is the root, the 3rd, 5th, or 7th. It doesn't matter. You're just going to do the math. Top to bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4. Second note from the top, you're going to drop that, lower it. Drop, there's that first word in the definition, 1 octave. The other 3 notes stay exactly where they are. So in this example, we've got C, E, G, and B. Or from the top down, 1, 2, 3, 4. B is number 1, G number 2, E number 3, C number 4. G is the second note. That's going to get lowered down the octave. C, E, and B stay where they are. So you go from the closed position to the open position. Or, excuse me, yeah, it is an open position. That's what we call it when it's greater than an octave. The drop 2 position. Closed, drop 2. It's a slightly different sound. I'll also invite you to check out my video on intervals in chord voicings, which is a big thing for me. I found very helpful in my own concept of creating chord voicings. But more specifically to our discussion, it's a little easier to play on the instrument. The graphic that I'm going to put up now, where it says chord position voicings, 4 mallets, We've got the closed position and then the drop two voicings. And you can do this treatment for a single chord, which is what we just did, the C major 7 chord, or you can do this for a chord progression. And you'll also find that you're going to mix together sometimes drop two voicings, sometimes closed position voicings. It depends upon the chords you're playing, the range of the instrument you're in, what the melody notes are. So it's not hard and fast that you have to only use one or the other, but make use of this and give it a try. I think you'll find it helpful. So we took here a basic 2-5-1 progression, D minor 7, G7, and C major 7, and the first measure shows it in closed position. Very straightforward. Again, there's nothing wrong with it. It sounds great. You play that, it's fine. It'll work on the vibraphone. And if you take a look at the measure below that, the grand staff with 2 treble clefs, I've broken it up by right hand and left hand. And you can see, if you're playing 4 mallets, you got 2 mallets in the right hand, 2 mallets in the left hand. The mallets in the right hand, for what I just played, starts with A and C, goes to G and B, and then repeats G and B. So you've got a third. Notes a third apart, a relatively narrow voicing, or close voicing. The left hand starts on D and F, repeats D and F, and moves to C and E. So we've got nice smooth chord voicing here. We've kept our common tones, notes that are shared from one chord and the next, and the other ones we've moved the shorter distance as possible. In the 2-5-1 in C major, it fits fine. If we were playing 2-5-1 in E flat major, it'd be a little more cumbersome, but I'm repeating myself here. So right hand and left hand together. Nice smooth voice leading. In the right hand column, we've got the drop 2 treatment applied to these voicings. So instead of D, F, A, and C, the A gets lowered an octave. So we end up with A, D, F, C, bottom to top. And we're still following the same nice smooth voice leading. So following the drop 2 treatment, it works well for this whole voicing. So the right under where it says drop 2, you hear D minor, G7, C major 7th. Get nice and smooth. If you check out what the right hand is playing, now we're dealing with 4ths and 5ths. Left hand, again, 4ths and 5ths. Wider spacings, a little bit easier to negotiate. And also, check out the other video to go into greater detail. You're more likely with these voicings to have the mallets in either hand either both be in the upper manual or both in the lower manual. Not as many positions, well, it depends upon the quality of the voicing, but generally speaking, you're less likely to have one mallet in the upper manual, the black keys, and another mallet in the same hand in the lower manual. That goes a long way towards making these voicings more comfortable. I'll leave the rest for the other video because otherwise we'll be here for about 40 minutes discussing this topic. But take the voicings that you find in the piano part, and whether you want to play them in this arrangement or just use them as raw material for studying chord voicings, try applying the drop 2 treatment technique to it and see what you come up with. Most of the time, all other things being equal, these are the kinds of voicings that I play. And the good news is, if you are playing the drop 2 version and the pianist is actually playing the original ones that are printed in the part, they will fit together fine. I mentioned before, I learned this studying vibraphone with Bill Molinoff. I heard this term used a lot when I was studying jazz arranging, both in undergraduate and graduate college studies. And if you check out the arrangements of Sammy Nestico, you'll see this a lot. The standard instrumentation for a big band: 4 trumpets, 4 trombones, 5 saxophones. So we're going to take the same 4-note voicing, dealing with the 5th saxophone is a whole other thing. We'll get into that another time. Take the same, if you figure out the 4-note, 4-part harmony for the trumpets, then you can just plug it into the trombones and saxophones. And it's very formulaic, but it works. And it illustrates that this and the drop 2 and the original work together beautifully. Trumpets will be the original voicing, all with closed position, all within an octave. Trombones will match the trumpets, 1 octave lower. Everything an octave lower, but the same voicing, just 1 octave lower. And the saxophones could double the trombones, or it could play an open position voicing, often a drop 2 voicing. And if you got this voice, the harmony worked out for the 4 trumpets, everything else is going to sound fine together. Again, it's very formulaic, but it works. So trust your ears, but the odds of coming up with something dissonant because you played the drop 2 voicing and the pianist played the original, highly unlikely. If it happens, you deal with it and you make an adjustment if you need to, but you shouldn't, because you're not adding or changing any notes. You're just changing what octave one of the notes is in. So give that a try. Playing that on the vibraphone, and see if you don't enjoy it a little bit more. See if it doesn't make it a little bit easier to do your job. So moving on, that's the big thing with the piano. Other than that, it's a pretty straightforward thing. You deal with the range and deal with the chord voicings. Other than that, it's pretty easy. You put the piano part up, read off of it, you're going to be okay. Guitar part, slight difference. Guitar is what's known as a transposing instrument, which means you have the note that is written on the page and the note when you hear it played on the guitar. Now, it's the easiest transposition you're going to deal with because the guitar sounds one octave lower than written. Remember in college, reading off of guitar parts and playing what I saw on the page. And all these melodic lines were in the upper part of the treble staff, maybe ledger lines going above the staff. So I'm playing way up in the high range of the vibes. And at the break at one rehearsal, the band director came over, who was not only the band director, but his main instrument was guitar. And he said, just remember, he said, Jim, maybe you don't know this. Guitar sounds an octave lower than written. So all the stuff you're playing up here, take it down the octave. And it just sounded so much better. You might decide as the arranger that you want to keep those notes up the octave, but where it's supposed to sound, one octave lower. So it's the same letters. Again, it's the easiest transposition in the world. If you have C, D, E in the guitar part, and you play C, D, and E, you're just in the wrong octave. Unless you choose to be in that octave, which is, again, developing your own creative sensibilities here. So other than that, it's very straightforward. So piano, guitar, not that tough to start with. If you have written out, notated, not just chord symbols, not tablature, but traditional notation for guitar voicings, check them out. Even if you don't want to play them, check them out. A lot of times voicings that are idiomatic to the guitar lend themselves very well to four mallet playing. I'll just throw that. Even if you don't want to do it in the arrangement, it's worth checking out. So we have exhausted a lot of the obvious things to deal with if you are adapting piano or guitar parts. Again, the most likely source material you're going to get. Next section in this video series, we're going to talk about if you start with a horn part, specifically trumpet or saxophone. Now we really get into transposition. That's going to be the crux of it, is how you need to take that written part for alto saxophone, that written part for B-flat trumpet, what you need to do to make that part sound good on the vibraphone. So we're going to wrap up here for now. Again, thanks for checking this out. If you've been doing, I'll repeat the request I made in the end of the last video. If you have been doing this, you are a high school student, college student who had to come up with parts for vibraphone, share your success stories, share your challenges. If you're having trouble with something, bring it to the comments section, and I, or hopefully one of the other viewers of this video, will be able to help you out with it. Let's get a conversation going. So next video, working with horn parts. Thanks for checking this one out. See you in a moment.